Welcome to Lost in Translation, the podcast where desire gets decoded. I'm your host, sexologist Natasha Miller, and there's one thing before we begin. If you hit follow wherever you listen to our podcast, it will help us grow and bring you even better guests and conversations. It takes 2 seconds, it's free, and it means the world. Now let's get into it. Hayley Folk, welcome to Lost in Translation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So am I. So you're a good friend. You're also a sex and relationships writer. That's actually how we met. I pitched you my intimacy card deck, and it was past deadline for a gift guide, and you still accepted it.
I didn't remember that it was past deadline, but I remember you reached out and it was like a rush for me to put it in.
That's why.
But I was like, oh, this is great. It's actually the only card deck that I like out of the ones that I had in there.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. And you're also a polyamorous content creator, the founder of the Poly Pocket, which has just blown up. I think that's a testament to how people are hungry for a relatable, non-monogamous role model.
Yes, 100%. I feel like I had no expectation that it was going to blow up at all. I just thought, no one's really going to care, but I'll post this. And I was inspired by a friend who has over 1 million followers to start posting. She was like, people want to know about this. And I honestly thought, no one's going to watch this at all. And now here we are, like a year later, and a lot of people watch it.
I knew people were going to watch it for sure. Yeah. Why do you think people are so hungry for it, like especially now?
I think for context, I think that the creators that have existed for the past 10 years in the polyamorous space look a certain way. And what I mean by that is like there's a lot of stereotypes and they're like in fishnets, they look like swingers, like that is the vibe.
That's true.
And I feel like my approach has always just been to show my authentic life and self. And unfortunately, people think that I quote unquote look normal. And that's why they're like, oh, I want to interact with your content because I can see myself living a normal life and also having this polyamorous side.
Right.
And there's not a lot of representation of what it would look like to have a normal life that integrates polyamory or non-monogamy in any way.
Well, that's actually one of the things that you've brought up is like, how do you live your polyamorous life authentically in a world that actually does prioritize cis heteronormative relationships? Do you ever feel the pressure to perform that kind of image?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm bisexual, I'm queer, my husband is also pansexual, so I feel like by definition, we are in a queer relationship. Even in like heteronormative spaces like play parties, for example, we show up in a different way than those couples. So I don't feel like I necessarily feel the need to perform. But I could see where other couples would feel that.
How do you think that you guys show up differently from the other couples?
I think there's such an emphasis on penetration.
Oh, yeah.
There's such an emphasis on like, this is the way to have sex and this is the way that people should interact and it needs to be a penis and a vagina. Like that is when, even on dating apps, when I see folks that are like practicing polyamory and they are straight, they're approaching it from that space of like, we have to find a third, we have to do this, we have to do that. And for Kyle and I, we show up in a way that's much more expansive and inclusive and like, hey, we'll see what happens with these relationships, sex or not.
I love that. So your origin story is actually quite interesting. You got married very young at 23 and to a man, and you already knew that you were bisexual. So what was it like going into a marriage with that awareness?
So it was strange. It was strange because, so a lot of people say they figure out they're queer like early on, like their formative years. And there were definitely signs for me. Like when I think back now, I'm like, oh, I loved this girl in middle school and I had no idea that I had a crush on her and I just thought we wanted to be best friends. But I didn't know that until later on, like really, because I was from a Baptist Christian environment.
Right.
And going into my marriage, we had already been in an open relationship for about a year before we got married because my husband at the time was like, I know that you're bi, like I know that you're queer and you like women. And I was frankly like, no, I don't. No, I don't.
You were suppressing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a long time. And
was there a lot of shame from your religious background?
I think it was less like shame about the religion part and more of worrying about what people in my social circle would think. It wasn't like an internal shame, like, oh my God, if I'm queer, then I'm going to hell. Like, I never grappled with that stuff.
Right.
Because I don't think I ever bought into that side of religion, honestly. Like, as a kid, I remember being like, this isn't real.
Yeah.
But my social circle was all Christian Baptist folks. So I was scared to lose my friendships in that way. But going into my marriage, I had been in an open relationship for a year. I had been dating women, and I feel like going into it, I was like, well, this will be fine because I can still date women. Going into the marriage part.
Yeah.
Not to mention the other things that were not great about that marriage.
Of course. So you had shared that he actually tried dating as well, and it didn't really stick for him. So it was more like a one-sided, non-monogamous relationship.
So I'll give you context. When I remember I came home, and we were living in Dallas, Texas at the time, and I came home one day, and we were sitting on the couch, and he just randomly said to me, I know you're queer. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this isn't real. And he's like, no, I know, like... And then I kind of took a step back and said, well, how do you know? Like, what did I do to, like, let you know this about myself? And then, you know, he explained, well, you know, when we watch movies, you comment on women in a certain way, or, like, you comment on people in a way out when we're at bars, and, like, I can tell that you're attracted to them. And so I was like, okay, like, yes, I'm bi. But what do I do about it? Because we're together, we're monogamous. And he said, well, why don't we open the relationship?
Let's be honest, it's really hard to feel sexy when your vagina feels off. If you're bracing for irritation, infections, or another post-sex UTI, it's almost impossible to stay present in the bedroom, and that's why I love Momotaro Apotheca. Their salve is my soothing balm for external irritation when my vulva feels raw from tight clothes, sex, or workouts. It calms the dryness, the itching, that everything feels irritated sensation. And their suppository supports you internally when yeast or discharge feel off. And their UTI supplement is my I've got you for those after sex moments that used to mean a guaranteed UTI. Now, when I know that my vagina is cared for, I show up way more confident and relaxed in bed. If you're interested, you can build your own ritual at momotarooapotheca.com with code LUST for 20% off.
Looking back, I think that there was probably people in our lives that he was interested in.
Okay.
But it never transpired to anything. Like, he was on dating apps, he was trying to date people, but it just never panned out for him. Right. Whereas I, maybe in a stereotypical fashion as a woman, was getting a ton of matches and going on a ton of dates, and he wasn't.
Which is usually how things play out. We joke that when men initiate non-monogamous relationships, they overestimate their market value.
Yes, they do. It's a little, I mean, it's just facts that, like, even when I go to a play party, I'm going to meet more people than my husband.
Yeah, absolutely. So you end up divorcing. Mm-hmm. What did you learn from that relationship?
Oh my God, so much. First off, I learned that I was polyamorous in that relationship. It's important context that we were open. We weren't polyamorous. So for people who don't know, openness is just more casual. Like, you can sleep with other people, you can go on casual dates, but it's not with the intention of, like, having a serious thing with another person. Whereas polyamory is having the ability to love multiple people romantically at once. And I fell in love with somebody that I was dating, like, very quickly. It was sort of a classic lesbian trope. I met this woman and we just hit it off right away. And I don't think I've ever had something that quick happen. And it helped that, like, big things in my life were also happening at that time. My mom passed away during that time. And so we naturally bonded very, very quickly. Trauma bonded, definitely. But it really scared me to realize that I loved someone and I also was in a marriage and I loved this person as well. I had no idea what polyamory was. So that marriage and the open relationship really showed me, oh, this other thing exists and that's okay. I also learned what I did not want in a partner. Like, I just didn't want somebody that was going to micromanage everything that I did, who didn't support me, who didn't have the same values and morals as me, who wanted a similar lifestyle to me.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because we romanticize getting married young, but there's so much that you learn throughout your 20s that it feels like you're just a different person.
Oh my God.
Reaching 30.
I didn't know myself at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I barely knew I was queer.
Yeah.
I only realized I was queer at 21. I got married at 23. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to be a writer, but like, what does that really mean?
Right.
Like in practice, like when you're that age, you don't know how to do that. And I certainly didn't know anything about my sex life. Like I was so repressed sexually and I had no idea.
Right. And I imagine that the experiences that you had with women while you were in an open relationship helped untangle that and open new avenues.
It definitely showed me what I was missing in certain ways, even just down to, you know, your partner going down on you. Like that wasn't really happening for me. So that in itself seems small, but
he's not a real eater.
No. I mean, it was like a little DJ Khaled vibes.
Oh no.
Like, and that's fine. Some people don't want to do that,
right.
But I needed something different. I needed a different energy. And I think a lot of the time in that marriage, when I would propose things or talk about sex in any way, it was met with like a deep shame for what I wanted.
Interesting.
By my partner.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very common experience, unfortunately, for a lot
Yeah.
of women in straight relationships.
Mm-hmm.
How was your first few times sleeping with a woman? How did you navigate that?
Oh my God, I was terrified. I definitely was that person that was on Google looking up like how to eat pussy. Like I couldn't. I was so scared. And I found this article, actually. I don't know if it still exists. I should really find it. But it was literally called How to Eat Pussy Like a Pro. And it was written by a lesbian, and the audience was straight men. Like she wrote it for straight men to become better at this. And
I love that she did that.
This is what I need to read.
Right.
I read it like 100 times before I ever actually hooked up with a woman. And then honestly, I didn't even need it. Like it wasn't scary at all. My nerves completely dissipated. I luckily had a partner who was so kind and loving and sweet, and like I told her beforehand, oh, by the way, this is like my first time with a woman, and she didn't care, which is something that I've heard a lot of people have a different experience with, like someone doesn't want to be their first time, right? And she was so accepting of the fact that it was. And then she said after, oh, I would have never known if you hadn't told me. So like don't feel the pressure to like tell people that you're not that experienced.
Yeah That's great.
Yeah, it's a good memory, and we're still friends.
Yeah, I love that. So you end up reconnecting with Kyle after your divorce. Mm-hmm. Kyle is now your husband, whom
yes.
I know and also very much adore. And you have written this very tender account of when you started hooking up. Mm-hmm. You wrote, during our rendezvous in hotel rooms or trips to Joshua Tree together, I found myself telling him stories of my other sexcapades, my infatuation with women, and how encouraging it felt to say everything out loud. He'd tell me about his adventures with other partners too, and I loved hearing every detail. How did this kind of openness about desire shape your bond early on?
Oh my gosh, I think it was everything. Kyle and I have been longtime friends. I met him in 2016 before I was in an open relationship, and I always had a massive crush on him. It could not be because I was in a monogamous relationship, and he was dating my best friend at the time, which is messy.
Yes. This was prior to your husband, your
yes.
first husband, yeah.
This was like when we were not even engaged yet, but I was still dating my first husband.
Okay.
And you know, I was repressed. I was going through all of this change. I realized I was queer in this time. I met Kyle, and, you know, he's 16 years older than me. And I could tell the conversations we had were very much like, I could tell he had experience that I didn't have, and it like was admirable to me that he was willing to be so open and share things. So when we did go romantically and things shifted for us, and I told him I've always had a crush on you, and he was like, I've always had a crush on you, but we were both trying to be good about it.
Yeah.
And like ethical. It just felt natural for us to then have these conversations about what desire meant for us and what it looked like in practice. And I think for us, it really solidified, oh, like you can be honest with your partner. You don't have to hide behind this idea that that folks don't share their past relationships or their past sexual experiences or the current ones. Like,
right.
Imagine dating somebody and you're like both hooking up with other people and you just never talk about it, and it's like a hush hush thing. Like, that's so normal in monogamy.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're in early dating and you're kind of just like waiting to choose the one. So
Yeah.
you're dating like 5 people at once.
I did
And
that.
yeah. Like, that's so normal. But for us, it was like, wait, let's just like talk about this. And like, oh, I did this thing with this other person. And it was so hot. Or for me, sharing my queerness with him was such a pivotal time for our relationship, because I did have to hide who I was from my ex-husband.
Right.
We were open, but it was not talked about. Like,
yeah.
he was super jealous. He didn't want to know. There was like a lot of putting me down if I would share that side of myself with him. And so with Kyle, it just felt like, oh, there's a clean slate. He doesn't care what I do, and therefore I can share. And we did bond in a different way. And I think for Kyle, I don't want to speak for him always, but he's told me in the past that that time has allowed him to truly see that he could be with a partner who wasn't scared of who he really was, sexually and otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it creates a level of safety and openness that is really sacred, and that I very much admire in my friends like you who are polyamorous, because it forces you to really communicate and face, I think, the fears and the insecurities that we may not want to face otherwise, especially in monogamous relationships.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really head-on process to be polyamorous.
So when you and Kyle got together, you started off with a one penis policy. For those who don't know what that is, can you share a little bit more?
Yes. So a one penis policy is when you're traditionally in like a heteronormative relationship, a man and a woman, and you both see other people, but the woman is only allowed to see other women and not other men, hence the one penis.
Yes. So was that something that he suggested, or was it mutual?
No, actually, we never talked about it. So when we started seeing each other, I was just seeing women outside of him. Part of that is I was just so over men. Like, could not be bothered to look at a man. Like, I really was just like, fuck men minus Kyle. Like, Kyle is my exception. And, even my therapist for a long time has said, Kyle's your exception. Like, it's okay that you're just like mostly queer. And I did really align with that for a long time. But then Kyle and I actually wanted to have an experience with a man together. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I could be okay with this. Like, this would be fun, and Kyle's there, and I'll feel safe. So I started looking for like someone to bring in to the bedroom.
Yeah.
And in that journey,
your unicorn.
Yes, my unicorn, who is a man, breaking the stereotypes. And in that whole thing, it's really hard to find that, actually. And I ended up finding someone, but we had our own thing first. And Kyle and I didn't talk about, I don't want you to sleep with another man by yourself. It kind of just evolved and happened naturally that like I met this person, we started hooking up, and then we started having a conversation about, wait, how does this actually make me feel to be with a man, and how does it make Kyle feel? And we realized, we've been living this like one penis policy without realizing it truly. I didn't even know what it really was. I didn't know it existed, that this was like a rule people had. And I'm like, wow, we've been doing this unknowingly for like 4 years.
Right.
And it's interesting to like look at yourself that way and analyze it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you decided to break off from the one penis policy and include multiple penises in your life, what were the boundaries that you guys established to make sure that there was, safety and comfort involved?
So early on, I definitely think the first experience we had with a man went terribly.
Oh, really?
Yes. I don't know if I've talked about this publicly before, but basically that situation with this man, it was like I only slept with him 2 times, but it made both of us really aware of the things we weren't talking about. And it kind of shed light on like, oh, we have some work to do here for both of us, for sure. Like, I wasn't communicating how I was feeling anxiety-wise. Kyle wasn't communicating how he was feeling anxiety-wise. And those conversations actually sparked us to get married, which is a whole other story. But
I love that. I didn't know that that was what sparked it. That's beautiful.
yeah, just because we started having these really intense conversations about what are we and what are we doing and like
Right.
what does this all mean, and if I am going to have multiple penises in my life, what does that really mean? And so because of the first hard experience moving forward, every time I saw a man, it was like, okay, we're going to go through this and have very strict guidelines and boundaries around like what we feel comfortable with. An example is if I was seeing somebody, we would have multiple conversations up until that date and we wouldn't stay the night with that person.
Okay.
So like I remember I went to London and I saw this guy that I had been seeing for a while. Every time I go, I would see him. But we had to have conversations, like really like lengthy conversations about like, okay, we're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. And here's how I feel and how I don't feel. And it was just a lot of prep for the actual date.
Right.
And afterwards, a lot of aftercare for us both to talk about, you know, the ways that we were feeling, what it brought up for us. And over time that's shifted. We don't do that really anymore. It's become so much easier. But early on, it felt like we really had to do a lot of care for one another in the process.
Yeah. It's really important for you to recap the experience and understand what are the things that can come up and the triggers and how to work through them.
Yeah. And it's funny because thinking back to that time, I don't think that we knew how stressful it was.
Right.
Because now it's become such a different dynamic. And now it's not a big deal that it's a man at all. Like,
right.
I had a threesome last weekend and it was great. And we didn't recap at all. But that's taken so much work and time to get to this place.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that when you started doing couples therapy?
Yes. So the conversation around our marriage actually happened because we almost broke up after I was with this man. And it wasn't about the man at all.
Right.
It really wasn't. It like had nothing to do with him. I barely knew him. Yeah, the sex was good, but it really, to me, was so much more about what we weren't saying to each other that we needed to say, where our relationship was headed, how it would make Kyle and I feel to be involved with someone in a different way, what it triggered for us. And so we literally almost broke up over this man. And I said, I think we should go to couples therapy. And part of that suggestion was, you know, in my previous marriage, I suggested couples therapy and my husband was like, no, I'm not going. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do with my life. It was like the classic, like what you think men are going to say about therapy. This is what was happening. It was like Joe Rogan vibes. Like that is really what it was. And so I knew
Joe Rogan is vaginal dryness.
It is. He is. I'm serious. So I thought to myself, okay, if we're having this issue, and mind you, Kyle and I never fought.
Right.
We don't fight. We don't really have disagreements. When we do, it's like a conversation, but we really don't have conflict a lot of the time.
Yeah.
This was our first real big thing. So it felt really big. And I decided to propose couples therapy. And I kind of thought to myself, well, if he says no, then like we're not meant to be together. Because, you know, this is pivotal to me. I'm a therapy believer. I think everyone should go to therapy, even not in a couple. Like you should go by yourself from time to time if you need it. And he said yes right away. And the next day I found a therapist. And the next week we were in couples therapy. And that started a whole journey for us in non-monogamy, in our marriage, in just like so much learning and unlearning about our relationship style and also how we communicate to each other.
Yeah, I love how you had that boundary firmly set in your head.
Yeah.
And
I actually didn't tell Kyle that was a boundary. I was just like, okay, let's see what he says.
Yeah. I will say when people ask me how to approach a conversation that they're anxious about with their partners, worried what the reaction is going to be, more often than not, when you bring up that level of vulnerability, partners do tend to react positively. And their answer really does say everything that you need to know.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to shift gears and I want to ask you about your first play party.
Yes.
What was that like? How did you feel going into it? Why did you choose the party that you chose?
So this was about, oh my gosh, it was 2023 now.
Recently.
Yeah. I went to Sanctum, and the only reason that I agreed to go to Sanctum with my partner Kyle is because I got asked to cover it for work. Because I'm a sex and relationships writer, sometimes I get asked to go to events and cover them. And I don't know, I thought it would be fun. I write personal essays. I'm like, let's go to a sex party. And of course, this is coined as the most exclusive sex party in the world. It's like very luxe. And I'm like, sure, this sounds fun.
Yeah, wait, but for those who aren't aware of Sanctum, describe a bit of the setting.
It's very like black tie, fancy cocktail attire. It's very luxurious, typically in a penthouse of some kind, like overlooking the city. My first one was in downtown LA, but they also have them in New York. And it was very lavish. You walk in and there's like, they're handing out champagne. Like a woman who's fully naked is handing out champagne.
Yeah.
And she's
eyes
like
wide shut.
Yes,
vibes.
And she's the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. And people are walking around in masks, very eyes wide shut. I think the original founder, kind of started the party with that in mind, that it was supposed to be an eyes wide shut experience, minus the satanic rituals, maybe a little satanic rituals. But
at some point he did go there.
Yes. But it's supposed to be very luxurious and a place where you can go and leave your inhibitions at the door and show up anonymously or not.
And ever since then, you've gone to more play parties. How do you feel like you navigate these spaces differently from your first time? How has that evolved?
It's very different. I think the first time I was so nervous. I prepared so much. I mean, I was there for work, so I had to interview folks. I also was like, well, what is the story going to be? I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to play. I don't know if Kyle's going to play. We also, as a couple, were just having a lot of conversations around like, what does this look like for us in practice, boundary-wise? And how can we communicate with each other if we're in a situation and you're across the room? Like, there's just a lot of things to think about. And so the first time I was definitely nervous. And when I got to the party, of course, all of those nerves dissipated, as they do for me. For some reason, I've discovered that I am definitely a voyeur. I'm also really an exhibitionist, and I love that about myself, but I would have never thought that about myself with like how I grew up, and also like being the shy woman in the room that I typically was growing up. And so now I go in with a much more confident attitude because I know what to expect. I know like the boundaries I have in place and how Kyle will interact with me. And like we have kind of a shorthand now for what it looks like for us if we're interested in someone.
Okay.
And whereas before we would have to check in and like step away and say, hey, are you actually okay with this or not? Now we just look at each other and we kind of like, oh yeah, fine. This is good.
Yeah.
Like, do what you want. It was funny. I went to a play party a couple of weeks ago, and, I did a flogging experience, and the person flogging me asked Kyle, we're also friends, if he was comfortable and wanted to be involved. And Kyle was like, no, this is for Hayley. Like, this isn't about me, like, at all. Whereas before it would have been like, I need to be here right with you and like support you in this journey. And that's really evolved. Like everything just feels more comfortable now.
Yeah. Well, actually, you also wrote about your first flogging experience, and it was at a Sanctum party, and it was also Daniel who ended up guiding that. And you just wrote so beautifully about watching another woman get flogged. So take us back to that first time that you witnessed it. What captivated you about it?
Her face.
How so?
I don't know this woman, but she was having the time of her life. Like, so this is what I love about flogging personally in my own experience.
Oh, by the way, for those who don't know what flogging is, it's when a dominant spanks a submissive, in this case with a leather flogger.
Yes. It's also referred to as impact play, and that can be with many different instruments.
Yes.
But for me, like going back to that experience and thinking about what attracted me to it, I immediately was gravitating towards the energy it was creating in her. Like she seemed she was having a great time. She was relaxed. She was not having a thought about anything else. Like, her brain was fully turned off and she just was fully in tune to her pleasure. And in that moment, she could relax. And I think as I've done more research on flogging, I know that impact play is popular for that reason. Like, it really does take you out of whatever it is you're experiencing to only experience that sensation alone.
Yeah. And because it's so powerful too.
Yes. I am someone that cannot turn my brain off. I have struggled with anxiety my entire life. And
relatable.
I would say my nervous system is all over the place for sure. That's from a lot of things.
Yeah.
But flogging is the one thing in my life that can make me completely turn my brain off.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. It's and also just watching it is really sexy. But I often say that impact play is not about sex for me at all. Yes, there's a dom involved.
Right.
I'm being dominated. It can be sexy. Like, I had an experience with Daniel where he was pulling my hair in a way and like choking me, but also flogging me at the same time. And yes, that's sexy, but like, it's because it turns my brain off.
Right.
That's so much about the submissive in me. Like, I want to be submissive because I don't want to think about anything else. I really, truly want to have a release.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wrote about the ending of one of your experiences being flogged. And you say, afterward, in a fog of aftercare, I felt like I had opened my chest to show him what was inside, and he met me with love, he being Kyle.
Yes.
He kissed me and held me and told me I was brave. I've never felt so close to anyone in my entire life. I've always trusted my husband, but after playing with impact together, it opened up a new level of vulnerability for us both. I love how you make the kinkiest things sound so sweet and angelic. You have a gift with words.
Thank you. Thank you.
How did your experience reshape, or how did that experience reshape your understanding of vulnerability and safety in pleasure?
You know, I think it's important to go back to what I wrote and just say that that was public. Like, we were on a bed at a play party. There were like 30 people in this room, and this was happening for me. And I didn't realize that an experience like this could facilitate that level of vulnerability and care in a public setting. I mean, yes, it can in a private setting. That's easy to understand. But when I had not experienced it, I just didn't know that I could reach that level. And I think for me, the level of trust that impact play and kink requires is that you have to go to that place of vulnerability. It doesn't exist without it. Like, you can't have kink and vulnerability not exist in the same space.
Right.
And for me, trusting Kyle in that space has been paramount to everything that we have in our relationship, and what I know about myself to be true as well. Like, I need vulnerability in my life and in my relationships, friendships, you know, partnerships, romance. All of it requires vulnerability, but in a kink setting, for me, it transformed my whole sexual experience to be something better. And not to mention, Kyle and I, our relationship deepened so much because of this. And I have told Kyle things about my kink and my inner world with BDSM that I've never told anybody. And he has never once judged me. I have never once judged him. We have a very intimate dynamic in that way. And there's things I'll never share publicly that are all related to each other in some way. But I could not have this relationship with another partner. I also think that kink is, although I'm polyamorous, kink is so different with each partner that you have it with. Like, I may like flogging, but if Kyle flogs me versus another partner that I have, it's going to be very different depending on the level of trust and vulnerability there.
Do you feel like it's sweeter with Kyle because you have that trust and that love for each other?
I do. And I think it's funny, Kyle and I recently had a conversation at this play party that we were at. This woman was there, and she was a pro-dom, and she was watching me get flogged. And I didn't know, but at the time she was asking Kyle, do you want to do that for her? Like, do you want to be what this person who's flogging you is being for her in this moment? Right. And he didn't have an answer for that. He was like, I don't know. And then he asked me later, like, do you want that from me, or do you want some level of sweetness? And I said to him, I don't really know. The dynamic that we have right now is so sweet and so caring. And Kyle's also said, he's like, honestly, the way that we were when we were just fucking in the beginning, when we were just like literally fuck buddies.
Yeah.
He was so much more aggressive with me than he is now.
Right.
And we've talked about it. He is sweeter now because he loves me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes he's like, I don't know if I could actually hit you as hard as you want to be hit because I love you so much.
Yeah.
And that's sweet too. And I don't need him to be one thing or the other. I think how he shows up for me is beautiful too. But it is very sweet and like tender.
I also think it's seasons of life.
Yes.
Like right now you guys are feeling this, but maybe in 10 years you'll want to like rev it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe in 10 years I need you to like lock me in a box. I don't know. Maybe.
For anyone who is curious about play parties, do you have any advice for how they can wet their feet?
Yes. So I think that you should first and foremost do your research on parties. There are a lot of parties, or I don't even want to call them parties. There are a lot of gatherings, like in big cities, LA, New York, Miami, London, but they're not always going to be the level that you want a party to be if you're just trying things out. For an example, maybe you really care about luxury, or you really care about STI testing, which is very important, by the way.
Yes.
You need to research and just see what parties are doing what, because every party has a different circumstance of like, do they require STD testing, STI testing? What is the protocol? Do they vet people before you go? Like, understand what you're really looking for. It's very similar to dating in that way. Like,
Yeah.
you have things that you're looking for, you want to check off the list, and a party needs to be the same. So my advice is always to do your research. And then, you know, of course, when you find a party that you want to attend, go with no expectation, because you might not even want to play at your first party.
Right.
A sex party does not mean that you have to have sex. And I think people need to know that. I think that idea or trope that you have to play going into a play party is actually detrimental to people's experience, because they go in either feeling the expectation that they have to play, and when they don't, inevitably they feel like, oh my God, I didn't do it right, or I don't like it, or I feel jealous, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or they just think that, you know, they have to be kinky to go, or whatever. Go in with an open mind.
Yeah. Just
like,
be curious.
Yeah, be curious. Go in thinking, I'm just going to go meet people. Like, that's how I go. Like, most of the time at play parties, I don't play. I might meet someone I'm really interested in, and I might go on a date with them later, or I might never see them again, but I had a really good conversation. Or I might end up having a threesome on a bed with Kyle and this really hot woman.
Yeah.
So who knows? But like, go into it with an open mind.
What I've heard from couples who have gone and have not actually had sex at these parties is that just watching other people do it and being in that really like sensual, erotic environment already spices things up for them.
Yes. I mean, it sparks conversations even about. Kyle and I have this ritual after parties. Every day after, we plan something fun to do. So the last one, we went to a brunch, and it's always with the purpose of talking about the night before and saying what inspired you, what did you not like. There are some things at play parties that you wish you could unsee.
Oh, I mean, I can imagine.
It's not all sexy. Sometimes it is, but it sparks conversation about what you want in the bedroom and what you find attractive, and things that maybe you've never thought about before. I'm like, actually, I want to try that, or I'm never wanting to try that. Let's never do that ever in our lives.
Okay, and if somebody wants to try impact play, what is your recommendation for starting out and establishing your boundaries and like feeling comfortable testing it?
So I think it depends if you're either doing this with your partner or you're doing this with a facilitator. If it's with a facilitator, which is somebody who is vlogging you in front of your partner, or maybe you're just wanting to do it alone, solo, I think that you can safely talk about consent with this person and make sure that they're like, you know, they know your personal boundaries and rules ahead of time, because you don't want to just jump in with someone who says they're a dom and then start anyone who's like, I'm going to dom you and I'm going to spank you and I'm going to do this and this, and it's like very aggressive, that is not
red flag.
It's a red flag. That is not the energy you want on your first time.
Right.
The other thing is, I think that you should learn about what pre and aftercare is. For people who don't know, aftercare is really the process. It could be literally anything that makes you feel safe and comfortable afterwards, because you can experience something called subdrop, where you literally feel depressed.
Oh.
There's also dom drop, which is a similar thing.
I've actually never heard of dom drop.
If you don't have aftercare, even as a dom, doms deserve aftercare too.
Yes.
You can experience a drop, and it can be really hard on your mental health. It's important to have all of these things in play. If you are experiencing impact play with a partner, I think it's really nice to just read things together. Like, it sounds cliche, but read material about, impact play, what it can do for you psychologically, what it means to have the role of dom, what it means to be a sub truly. What do these things mean to you and your partner? Like, it doesn't mean that you're just going to dom someone and like be in charge of them and they have to do whatever you say. In my opinion, being a submissive is more powerful than being a dom in all of the ways, because you have to have the level of trust and vulnerability to get there, and you are letting this person do this to you. You're not giving them power. You're giving them your power. So knowing all of this stuff and reading about the knowledge around consent and what it can do to your nervous system as well is really important. And something that people are just like, oh, this is sexy. I'm like, imagine having like a feather and you're like tickling your partner with this feather and you're like, this is sexy and cute and like kind of bondagey fun and like very intro level. And then you also buy a flogger and you're like, well, I guess I'm just going to hit you with this thing. No.
Yeah.
Take it slow. Don't do that. Understand what it really means.
Build up.
Yeah. And also beforehand, if you're like in the space to explore, what I like to do is you can have your partner get on all fours and then just literally touch them all over their body. Don't just hit them right away. Like, you need to like build up to that and like tap them slow, give them different sensations, and then ask them like, do you want it harder? Do you want it softer? What does this feel like for you? And have communication throughout.
I love that. That actually reminds me of an article you wrote on Baby Girl.
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I did an article for Cosmo around Baby Girl, and it was less of a review, but more just around what it sparked for me in terms of kink. And I think it was really a guide for what not to do in kink. That whole movie was terribly done in terms of kink and consent. I mean, she's cheating on her husband with this younger man, and they're having a kink dynamic, but like no boundaries are talked about. It's just not... It's a guidebook on what not to do. Yeah,
which the director did mention is what her intent was.
Yes. But I actually think that it could be harmful for folks because I think people were going into it. It's like Nicole Kidman, like everyone's going to see this movie. People were going in thinking, oh, maybe I could do this, or this is really sexy, and then sparking like a cheating fantasy or whatever. I just think it's a little irresponsible because there should be some sort of thing in the film that shows that it's really not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, instead of the kink shaming that happens.
Okay, so there have been a slew of open marriage memoirs. There was More by Molly Winter, which I read, Adult Braces by Lindy West. And a common critique that I also personally had reading More is that these narratives, they often center around the husbands who are initiating non-monogamy and the wives that are adapting under strain. What's your take on this?
It's classic. It's classic. I think, okay, the problem with these types of memoirs, I think they can be really helpful because obviously we need a lot of different experiences out there on non-monogamy.
Yes.
However, because a lot of the memoirs out there are focused on this idea that the woman didn't really want this and the man proposed it, it perpetuates this idea that that is true for every single person that goes into non-monogamy. Yeah. I get asked this all of the time. Like, well, I'm sure your husband just wanted you to do this and you're just agreeing because blah, blah, blah to make him happy. Actually, no. Kyle was not introed into non-monogamy before he met me. I was the one that proposed polyamory and non-monogamy in our relationship. I wanted this. Women are capable of this too. It's not just a trope that men want non-monogamy so they can sleep around with a bunch of women. And as we talked about before, it's actually more likely that they won't sleep with anybody. I will proudly say that if I went anywhere, I could sleep with anyone that I wanted. Probably.
Yes.
And that's not true for most men in non-monogamous relationships. So I think that this idea of like, you know, the woman didn't want it and men do, and they're only doing it to please their husband is just false. And yes, it's true for some people. And yes, these women do adapt and understand that maybe non-monogamy is for them, or it's not, and they get a divorce or whatever. But it's just not true for some people.
Yeah, I feel like we need a Hayley memoir on this.
It's
to counterbalance.
It is hopefully coming.
I will say what really surprised me reading more is how she shares so many red flag relationships that she got involved. And as a woman who was already in her 40s and is now in her 50s, I'm talking about the author of More, Molly Winter, it contrasted so much to me having just read I'm Mostly Here to Enjoy Myself by Glynis McNichol, who is single and talks about her experience living in Paris, being so grounded and sure of herself and clear on her boundaries of like who she wanted to date or not, and just truly enjoying herself, which is the narrative that we often get. Women in middle age are not desired. So she's there being extremely desired and desiring. And then I'm reading Molly's, I mean, it's just one disaster after another that she shares in her book. And I just remember thinking like there has to be a benefit of being older with more knowledge and knowing yourself better. That I remember that being for me the biggest distinction as I read both books.
Yeah, I opened my relationship when I was 21 years old, and I made a shit ton of mistakes. Like, there is, like, everyone will make mistakes in non-monogamy. And there are a lot of red flags to avoid. But I think, like, you have to know in everyone's experience, they're going to make, like, mistakes, and they're going to do things they don't agree with later on. And it's going to go against their ethics and their morals at some point.
Right.
We've all done this. But I think as I'm older now, and I've been doing this for nearly a decade, hell no, I wouldn't do the thing that I did back in 2017.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not. But I have, like, the hindsight now, right? But as I get older, I do think, I'm 30 and I'm not old, but I've been doing this for so long that I feel like I have a different wisdom about it.
For anybody who is thinking about opening up their relationship, what would be your advice?
Go slow. Like, I think the huge mistake that people make is saying, I want to open our relationship that has been monogamous, because historically that is what people do. It's really rare to start in non-monogamy.
Yes.
I mean, Kyle and I started in non-monogamy, but that's because I did a ton of work and I knew what I wanted beforehand. That's not the norm. Most people go from, like, a monogamous marriage with kids and, like, maybe being together for 20 years and then deciding they want to open up because they need to spice up their marriage or whatever they think they need to do. And they move really fast.
Yeah.
And that leads to so many mistakes,
harm,
not communication, hurting others and yourself. Even with the best of intentions, you need to move slowly. And that starts with having a ton of conversations around what it is that actually inspires you about non-monogamy. Why do you want to do it? And are you actually on board with non-monogamy, or are you agreeing with it because your partner wants it? Do you have boundaries in place? Like, I think I have a friend who I've known for a very long time. I have slept with her every year for the past 7 years. Like, once or twice a year. It just always inevitably happens. And I met her when she was married to her former partner, and they were in an open relationship for their entire relationship. And she told me something really fun when I met her. She said that they have a document, a living document, with all of the rules that they've ever had in their non-monogamous relationship. And as it's evolved over the years, because they started in college and now they're in their mid-30s, they've crossed things out. But they kept it on the document, so you can see your progress of like how things have changed and shifted for you and your agreements and boundaries and rules. And those three things are different, by the way. Like rules and agreements are different from each other. It's a living document, and I loved that idea, and I always talk about that now because I think it's such a good idea for folks who are just starting out to really like write it down, sign it, print it out, old school, and sign it.
I love how they kept that living document.
Yeah, and it's literally 20 pages long.
That's insane. Okay, so for those who don't know, what is the difference between a rule, an agreement, and a boundary?
Sure. So I don't really like rules per se. Rules feel very rigid and hard and almost like if you break this rule, you're going to get in trouble. That doesn't feel right to me. But for some people, it does.
Right.
It feels safer to have a rule. A rule is like a hard set rule that you set with your partner that's like, this is the thing we're doing. A rule example can be we don't spend the night with other partners at all.
Right.
Ever. That can be a rule. An agreement, however, is something that's more fluid and changing. It can be something that you come to together, and depending on circumstances, it can change. So another example that's in the same vein of like me and Kyle, we used to have a rule in the beginning that we didn't sleep at other people's houses. And then it became an agreement. And then it was like, well, this person is nice, and I think you should stay the night there. And then it was, oh, well, you know, she lives an hour away and that's totally fine. She should stay the night. Like it's shifting and changing depending on the situation. And an agreement feels much more team driven to me and relational than a rule because you're doing it together. It's not one person setting the rule and then you having to follow it.
Yeah.
And I just like that language a lot more.
For those who don't know, Hayley does consult for non-monogamy, so you can certainly book a time with her.
Yes, I do. I offer one-on-one and then also with couples as well.
So you've written about living separately.
Mm-hmm.
How do you and Kyle stay erotically connected when you're apart?
So Kyle and I are away from each other a lot. He works on the road, and so we see each other every 3 weeks typically. And when we're away, we have silly things that we do to keep our erotic connection alive. One, it helps that we sleep with other people.
Yes.
You know, that's nice. We get our needs met in those ways, but also it sparks conversations for us about what we find hot. Like, you know, if he's sleeping with somebody and the other partner is okay with it, he'll tell me things that they've done, and I'm like, oh, I love hearing about that. But we also send each other Instagram posts that are like sexy to us. We'll send each other links for lingerie that we want, or you know, spicy videos that we like, that we want each other to watch. We also just talk about things that in our day inspire us. Like if he's flirting with someone at a coffee shop, he'll tell me, or I'll tell him. That's sort of why non-monogamy works for us so well. It really does inspire our sex life.
Yeah.
And keeps us close. And we always check in with each other in those small ways every day. We FaceTime, we talk on the phone, we text all of the time, but there's always some component of like relational eroticism and understanding sexuality. And there's days where I don't feel sexual, but like Kyle does, and we'll talk about it, and or vice versa. And that's really nice.
I love that there's like a playful, humorous part of your daily connection.
Yeah, and people think because we don't live together full time that we aren't connected and that we're not really married and we don't have a sex life, but we have the best sex life because we actually miss each other. When we have sex, it's like, oh, I haven't seen you in a month, and like I really, really want to have sex with you.
This reminds me, when I was 18, I read an article by Diane von Furstenberg. She mentioned how, I believe it was obviously with Barry Diller, that they lived apart and how it's been the best marriage because of that. And I remember it inspiring me so much. I was like, when I get married, I am going to live separately from my husband because, you end up actually missing each other, but there's also this component of having your independence and your own space, which like the longer you are with a partner, you really relish, you know, those moments. Yeah. So that just reminded me how it's funny because people often are shocked when you share that you live apart together.
Yeah.
But for me, when you shared that, I was like, no, that totally makes sense. You know?
It's really funny. I was just on TikTok Live yesterday, and I was on for 2 hours. And the number one question that I got was, why don't you live with your husband? And also, how does this work at all? Like you're not really married. It doesn't work. And I mean, of course, Kyle, there's nothing traditional about Kyle and I's marriage. We have a 16-year age gap. We're non-monogamous and polyamorous, and we don't live together.
Yeah.
But we're married, and it works for us. And as someone who was married before, getting a divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I found the relationship that I was meant to be in with a partner who truly aligns with everything that I want in a marriage and in my life.
And it's just so important to have different role models of what a relationship can look like.
Yeah, and it's part of the Polly Pocket. It's why I share what I share. So many people hate me online, and that's fine, because the one person that doesn't, that's getting help from it, is like why I do it.
Exactly. Okay, one of the questions that we got is, do you find dating dynamics like texting, scheduling, emotional pacing differ between poly and monogamous relationships?
Yes, I do. So in my relationships with other people, I feel like, you know, there's sort of this expectation in monogamous dating that you like go on a date and then you text the person right away and then you set the next date and you keep like continuing on. Whereas in polyamory, it feels more fluid. Like there's not a line of like, this is when you should text a person. Like, you know, when someone's like, don't text them for 3 days after the date because you don't want to seem too eager. None of that exists in polyamory. It's like a free-for-all.
That's refreshing.
It is. There have been times where it's a little frustrating for me, though, because I am a texter. I do want people to communicate with me. And some people I've dated just don't text. They don't want to communicate in that way, or they would rather be on a phone call or whatever, but they don't communicate that ahead of time. So then I'm like, oh my God, are they ghosting me? Like, because there is rules, like untalked about rules, unspoken rules in monogamy about how dating should go.
Yeah.
And everything is thrown out the window in polyamory. And I think with scheduling dates, it is a bit different. Like sometimes I'm dating someone who has 3 partners and they have to be like, well, my wife is here on this day and I'm seeing my other partner tomorrow. So like in 3 days I'm available. Instead of just being like, hey, what are you doing Friday night?
Right.
So it's a lot of communication, a lot of Google calendaring on my end.
Which a lot of people can find overwhelming, but it also forces you to be very clear about what it is that you want, who you want to prioritize, dating intentionally.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
Wild concept. Dating intentionally.
Hayley, thank you so much. I really appreciated this conversation. I think it'll help a lot of people who are curious and are really looking for a new role model and new ways of becoming romantically involved and partnered with other people.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun, and I'm so excited to see what people think about the episode.
Thank you for listening to Less Than Translation. If you enjoyed this, please hit follow wherever you listen and leave a review. It helps more people find us, and it means everything. See you next week.